Welcome to a new ongoing series on the channel where I analyze the musical score from some of the greatest movies, TV shows, and video games. It is here where I discuss how a soundtrack complements its corresponding title, along with how it came to be. In this episode, we're approaching the critically acclaimed score of David Lynch and Mark Frost's original Twin Peaks series, composed by Angelo Badalamenti. When I say original, I'm excluding the third season's return, which I'll be making a separate episode for. We'll talk about how its main theme is so enduring, Angelo's technique to creating an adjustable score, and how the score produces a captivating yet uncommon sound. Before we start, if you're a newcomer and you don't know what an old Tin Man is, consider subscribing, you'll find it out eventually. Plus, you'll see more soundtrack and media analysis. With all that said, let's begin. The main titles of Twin Peaks has got to be the most notable piece in Badalamenti's score. The three powerful opening notes is what defines the theme's magic, and it's what carries the listener to the end of one of the greatest opening titles that has been composed. This theme originated from a project Badalamenti and Lynch were working on a year prior to the development of the show's soundtrack. The two composed and produced the debut album for Julie Cruz called Floating into the Night, an album that heavily influenced and grew the Twin Peaks score. There are even a couple songs from that album that pushed into the score, such as The Nightingale and Falling, which later transformed into the main theme. At the time, Angelo and David weren't outlining Twin Peaks in any way, but when the show created and matured into development, David knew the instruments used in Cruz's song Falling was the identity of Twin Peaks. Instead of just removing Julie Cruz's vocals, Angelo added an instrumental melody on top of the track. When the show picked up and became a success, viewers were so enthralled with its main theme, and people were becoming curious of those three starting notes. Angelo got letters from many musicians and producers asking what those synthetic notes were, since it's difficult to output such a deep note on a keyboard, or on any other instrument for that matter. Angelo and the show's supporting synthesizer, Kenny Landrum, came up with this tone by sampling from rock and roll musician Duane Eddy's guitar, which was used as an emulator on the keyboard. The emulator was played on an octave lower than its original state, and was layered onto a separate low-tuned guitar. When it comes to layering upon layering within a single tone, it becomes more and more crucial to keep the sound's vibrations stable, since that sound can easily become distorted and incomprehensible. Not only were Angelo and Kenny able to balance this tone, but they were able to achieve the perfect sound for the Twin Peaks theme. Work for the Twin Peaks soundtrack was underway in the fall of 1989. It all started out in a dimly lit makeshift studio/office, with David, Angelo, and a Fender Rhodes keyboard, where they wrote Laura Palmer's theme. Lynch sat next to Angelo and detailed an ambient scene of Laura in the Sycamore Woods. After creating the signature theme, Lynch informed him that Twin Peaks would rely on this tone to replicate its mood. Angelo just created a majority of the show's score with this individual motif. While composing the soundtrack, Badalamenti translated Lynch's subtle descriptions into music, and in the case of the pilot episode, without seeing any visuals for the show. One of Badalamenti's ways to symbolize a theme that is controlled by young men, he would associate their masculinity with finger snapping. Angelo calls this cool jazz, which included, and I quote, cocktail lounge electric piano, pulsing bass, and lightly brushed percussion. The concept of Twin Peaks is a contrasting combination of the 50s and 80s fusion, ambient dream pop mixed with rockabilly, which indicates an eternal beauty. In the coming years after Twin Peaks was scored, Angelo incorporates the music of the series in many of David Lynch's films, such as Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. There are songs within the score that bridge together the show's flow. The theme of Bookhouse Boys' Secret Society, which is also called Bookhouse Boys, carries a mosaic of the show's score, as it encompasses many of the melodies from the show, starting with Dance of the Dream Man and ending with Laura Palmer's theme. Although it takes such an uncommon collection, the idea of this song is the connection between all the elements of Twin Peaks. In this case, the Bookhouse Boys organization is a mix of characters, including some of the sheriff's department, civilians, and an FBI agent, that oppose the darkness of Twin Peaks, which is subtly what Twin Peaks is about, a story about the lawful good and the chaotic evil. So in this case, you can look at the Bookhouse Boys theme as the Twin Peaks plot as an ensemble. Something Angelo accomplishes in his music is what is called suspensions. A suspension is a strong note that is drawn out while the melody changes, which establishes a dissonant note, or in other words, a note that is considered off-center and against the melody's typical behavior. The suspension creates irregularity, and therefore helps Angelo evoke an unnerving theme. The greatest example of suspension in Twin Peaks' soundtrack is Audrey's Dance. The sequence of notes fight against each other to create tension. Throughout the song, the melody changes several times, since the suspension creates such a diverse series of notes clashing into each other. The song displays an intriguing misbalance involving the vibraphone, keyboard, accidental clarinets, and, once again, snapping of the fingers. This theme labels Audrey's odd personality and her role in the conundrum of Twin Peaks' storyline. Angelo also has a technique that he uses to manipulate a majority of the background music, not specific to any leitmotif or reoccurring theme of a character or situation. Imagine a scene in the Double R Diner or the Great Northern without the need of Audrey's or Laura Palmer's theme. We usually have an unspecific tune that underlines the overall theme of Twin Peaks. This undefined tune is the musical blanket for times that demand a simple theme. This technique originated from the theme Dance of the Dream Man, an ensemble mix of instruments that carries the same melody of a majority of these lone scenes. Now, Angelo recorded a generous amount of mixes for each Twin Peaks theme, with piano, synth, saxophone, guitar, bass, and so on. And when he recorded a piece, he has all the instruments played at once. Each instrument was recorded separately on their own tracks, without trickling onto other instruments on other tracks. So each recorded theme is a collection of tracks for each instrument. With the capability of switching off certain tracks or instruments, the theme can take different shapes. This made it possible to recycle a theme and come up with a different result. Each theme was developed to be dynamic and altered to suit the emotion of any given scene. To put it this way, Angelo created multiple versions of one theme with only one recording. This is significantly different than the conventional score of a television series where a composer re-records a theme in a different tempo or manner. The soundtrack cleverly leads the audience back to a theme to have a bigger impact than their initial listen. Badalamenti balances the perfect amount of emotion in Twin Peaks' score, with an ever-changing resonant composition, while keeping a preservation of the show's motif with mystery and unfamiliarity. Before we conclude the episode, don't forget to subscribe as I talk about Twin Peaks on a normal basis. I should probably see someone for that. Take a look at my theory and analysis videos in the new season in the playlist above. Based on your interest for Twin Peaks, I'll also be creating soundtrack analysis videos for titles such as Black Mirror, Westworld, and Mr. Robot in the near future. I'm also taking requests for movies, TV shows, and video games for Score Uncovered, so let me know here on YouTube or on my Twitter page. Alright, Twin Peaks has much to offer, and the soundtrack is its connection to the audience. When someone thinks about Twin Peaks, we usually replay its main title sequence in our surreal imagination. Angelo constructs his ambient synthetic soundtrack in a way which we will never forget. His score for the series is somewhat of a new sense we perceive. Much like Sight and Taste, the music of Twin Peaks allows us to distinguish the events that materialized due to Laura Palmer's murder. I'm sorry, Laura, but your death gave us good music. It's no wonder why the score has influenced so many since the show's release in 1990. I want to thank you for watching this episode of Score Uncovered. I hope you all enjoyed the new series. I know it's somewhat of a change from what I usually do with my other analysis videos, which I promise I'm still continuing. But music scores just aren't recognized enough, and I think we should give them some credit. So to end here, once more, thank you greatly.